There, I have your guest with us, Sherry.
Hey, Gay.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, sweetie?
Okay, good. Freezing.
Yeah, freezing. Yeah. And we can't believe, I think I told you the other day it was 62, and now, it's like in the 40s or 30s or whatever. So who knows? It's, it doesn't even pay to keep track over here anyway. We had some snow last night, but very, very briefly. So.
Oh, well, get ready. They're having a huge storm up through Wisconsin, northern Wisconsin, something like 7 inches of snow. Might be coming your way.
Well, what I see here, I'm looking at the weather now for the next 10 days. Tomorrow's going to be 51. Saturday is going to rain, but be 67. Sunday, it goes down to 47. Monday is 52. Tuesday, 53. So I don't know. We got, it changes.
I'm at 80.
You're at 80. I know. He's in Houston. Yeah. But we have to feel bad for you when it's dry, dude.
I know. I'm wearing
no
t-shirts and shorts today.
Yeah. It's like the whole world's gone crazy, It's amazing.
Yeah.
When they started needing air conditioning in Seattle, right, Cameron? That's when we knew things were wackadoodle. Yeah. It's crazy. I don't know. So any last minute questions, Gay? Everything cool with the questions?
As far as I can see, the questions were good. Hopefully I will be giving you what you want. And I think you pretty much telescoped it down.
Okay, good.
Well, so yeah.
Good. Okay.
Just go with it.
I wanted to let you know, I don't know if you know Valerie Weir from Steven's program, but she's out in Michigan. And when I posted, I noticed that she responded enthusiastically to the show's content. So I was like, yay. Okay.
Hey,
Yeah.
Right,
so
we'll see.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk, like I said, for about 15 or 18 minutes, somewhere in there. And then I'll read your bio, bring you on, say hello, and we'll go right into the questions.
Okay.
And as noted before, we'll go, if there's something you want to bring up that's not part of the questions, that it's relevant to the, whatever, just go with it.
Right. Yep. Okay.
And it'll be an easy flow. The only other thing I want to tell you is you might want to mute yourself while I'm talking until I bring you on. That way there'll be no background distraction. It sounds pretty quiet there, but you never know. So
mute, like
you're on a cell, right?
Yeah.
Do you know how to mute it?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, just take care not to rustle papers or, open and close doors and things like that, because it'll show up.
Yeah, no, you don't want that.
Yeah. And neither do you if you want to use the recording to, to circulate afterwards or whatever. And as I noted, all they have to do is click that link. It doesn't have to be just now for the live. It could be any time. They just go right to my site and they'll find the archived recording.
Okay.
All right, stand by. Here we go. And you're live.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Karmic Evolution's Astrologically Speaking. I'm your host, Sherry Horn Hassan of Karmic Evolution Astrology, and I'm coming to you on December 9th, 2021 from Contact Talk Radio. Just a quick reminder that this show aims to bring you the truth about astrology and your soul's karmic evolution. Today, my guest is professional astrologer, author, and Bach flower remedy expert GAYE MACK, who I will, of course, be introducing properly in just a few moments. First, my usual housekeeping stuff, which is to tell you that you can listen to Karmic Evolution's Astrologically Speaking anytime by simply going to my website, karmicevolution.com, and clicking on the banner labeled Radio Show. From there, you can scroll down the page and hear the most recent show, either live or recorded, or search the archive listings for past shows that you might have missed or to which you want to listen again. Separately, you can always follow me on my Facebook page, which is Karmic Evolution for Your Soul, where you can sign up for my Conversations About Consciousness newsletter as well. And next, I want to reiterate something that I talked about last week, which is to tell you about some upcoming interesting Astro webinar events that hopefully you may be interested in, or, you know, find interesting in terms of looking at the astrological energies for 2022. So the first one is professional astrologer Ronnie Dreyer's 10th annual Sensitive Degrees webinar of 2022, which is scheduled for December 12th from noon to 5 p.m. And in addition to covering these last two year-end 2021 eclipses, which Ronnie notes will have a huge impact on 2022, she'll also discuss all of the planetary retrogrades, major aspects, ingresses, etc., including the upcoming transiting nodal shift into Scorpio Taurus, out of Sagittarius South Node, Gemini North Node, and into Scorpio South Node, Taurus North Node. And Ronnie notes also that if you can't make it live, you'll definitely get the audio and visual. She has audio and audio visual recordings and a whopping 50 plus pages of charts, lists, and tables. Those are for my Virgo-oriented friends. In addition, Ronnie offers a 90-minute follow-up that will occur in July of 2022, the purpose of which will be to review the first 6 months of 2022, because she notes as well that, you know, things may change, and to look ahead to the rest of 2022. And that's included, as I noted, if you sign up for her webinar now. Just go to Ronnie Dreyer, that's RonnieDreyer.com for more information and to register. Also, as I mentioned last week, I recommend Ronnie's webinar, especially for those who are totally into astrology and all of these details, because she's amazing. I've had her on the show before, so those of you who recognize her name will remember how good she is. She is also a Vedic astrologer, and she does point out both the sidereal Vedic ingresses of all the things that I mentioned, as well as the Western tropical ones. But I also highly recommend well-known astrologer Alan Oken's webinar, December 12th also. And if you want to choose between the two or sign up for both of them, you'll get the recording if you can't make it live. And you choose one webinar over the other. So Alan's webinar is titled 2022, An Astrological View of the New Year. Alan's annual New Year astrological lens will look at a number of important celestial events and how these transits correspond to events and tendencies in our lives. And these, much like Ronnie's, will include Jupiter's transit through Pisces and its entry into the first 8 degrees of Aries during 2022, Saturn in Aquarius and Uranus in Taurus as they continue their square dance through 2022, Neptune's continued powerful passage in Pisces, Pluto in the last degrees of Capricorn. Of course, we all know that if you don't know, I'll tell you now, we're going to have the Pluto return at 27-28 Capricorn by February of 2022. He will also include Mercury's retrogrades and Mars' very long stay in Gemini, and a discussion of the solar and lunar eclipses in Scorpio Taurus and their meaning for all the signs. And finally, I'm offering still my 1-hour Karmic Evolution Natal Insight reading for listeners only at $99. And this reading is for those who want to gain greater consciousness about their soul's true mission and purpose in this lifetime, who want to move from chaos to clarity in their relationships, career, finances, and/or health, whatever topic is of most interest to you right now, or combination of topics. For those who want to heal old karmic wounds and co-create their own future happiness and success, and to awaken to their true potential and highest destiny in this lifetime. I love to say that it's easy when you take advantage of my special discounted offer for listeners, a 1-hour Karmic Evolution Natal Insight reading for only $99. So if you're interested, simply email me at Sherry, that's SHERI, at karmicevolution.com and book your reading today. At almost half the regular price, conscious awareness has never been so easy or so affordable. And I'll mention also that since we're in the holiday season, if you'd like to purchase a gift certificate for someone or someone's, please feel free to do so. We can arrange that as well. It's a great time to give the gift of astrology to friends and family and other loved ones. All right, so let's get into this week's astro news you can use. We're in the waxing portion of the Sagittarius new moon solar eclipse from December 3rd and 4th right now, at least until we hit next week's Gemini full moon on December 18th. And we'll be discussing more about that full moon next week. But we're still working right now on tending to any seeds that were planted around expanding our consciousness about what came to light before, during, or after the eclipse about our own personal truths and how we might be adjusting these truths, quote unquote, to better reflect our changed and current value system now. That's because that solar eclipse had the luminaries quincunxing, which is a signature, 150-degree signature that some kind of adjustment needs to be made. And with Venus in Taurus, the adjustment is to our changing values. We also experienced Mercury in Sagittarius square to Neptune in Pisces just yesterday, and with that aspect actually perfected late on December 7th or early on the 8th, which was yesterday, depending on your time zone. Now, Mercury in Sag is the storyteller, the raconteur, the gypsy who may tell tall tales around the fire, while Neptune adds a glamorizing touch as the fire crackles and pops and sparks fly up occasionally, always at just the right point in the story. Now, this aspect's energy, excellent for branding, as in getting others to believe that one thing represents another, can help us paint pictures with our words. And while this is neither to be deemed good nor bad, positive nor negative, it can be used to confuse or deceive us. For example, we know that Donald Trump's got a natal Mercury square Neptune in his chart, and that his biggest strength is as a brand marketer. How a person defines branding is really key. If Coca-Cola tells you it's the real thing and that it wants to give the world a Coke, this evokes certain images and also emotions for potential buyers. So whether one defines this aspect's energy as deceitful or not remains up to each of us. But this is why Mercury square Neptune can ultimately be confusing. Some may use this energy to purposefully confuse others, or we may, react to it by becoming confused or deceiving ourselves. So it's good to be cautious around these times and not buy into everything we hear, see, or read, or in whatever way a message is communicated to us through that Neptunian lens. It's interesting to note that today, former Senator Bob Dole, who passed away on December 5th, which was prior to this square perfecting, is lying in state at the U.S. Capitol today, championed as a war hero from World War II who was left for dead on the battlefield, yet managed ultimately to be rescued and not only to survive, but to gain status as a political bigwig in Congress. Now, according to the New York Times obituary, and I'm quoting here, as the old soldiers of World War II faded away, Mr. Dole, who had been a lieutenant in the Army's storied 10th Mountain Division, was wounded so severely on a battlefield that he was left for dead, came to personify the resilience of his generation. In his post-political career, he devoted himself to raising money for the World War II Memorial in Washington and spent weekends there welcoming visiting veterans. End quote. Now, one of the things I found particularly interesting about Dole is that he was a staunch Republican who, having grown up poor in Kansas, backed, reportedly proudly, the rescue of Social Security in 1983, which of course would have been during the Reagan years, of pushing the landmark Americans with Disabilities Act in 1992. He was National Republican chairman under President Richard M. Nixon in the early 1970s, the running mate to President Gerald R. Ford. He ran for as vice president in 1976, chairman of the Senate Finance Committee during Ronald Reagan's presidency in the 1980s, and presidential standard bearer during Newt Gingrich's quote-unquote revolution of the mid-90s, when the Republicans captured the House for the first time in 40 years and upended the power dynamic on Capitol Hill. Now, Dole spent 25 years in Congress, where he was known, according to the New York Times, as, and again I quote, a skilled legislative mechanic. Mr. McDole understood what every senator wanted and what each could live with, and he enjoyed the art of political bartering. So when I looked up his chart data, and he was born on July 22nd, 1923 at 12:10 a.m. in Russell, Kansas, I noted that he's got a 7th house Moon-Jupiter conjunction in Scorpio, which squared his natal 5th house Neptune in Leo. So interesting how the Times puts it, because Scorpio, especially a Scorpio moon, can often understand how other people think or what is their deepest desire, especially when that ability is magnified by expansive Jupiter. So the Moon-Jupiter conjunction squared a Neptune allowed him to capitalize on other people's altruistic desires to help, particularly the collective, which is what Neptune energy represents, but probably in exchange for something potentially monetary. That's at least in my opinion. And it's super interesting to note as well, again, in my opinion, that Dole, as again the New York Times puts it, alone among his party's old guard, endorsed Donald J. Trump for president in 2016 as his preferred candidates had fallen by the wayside. On the eve of his 93rd birthday, he was the only previous Republican presidential nominee to appear at the party's convention in Cleveland, where Mr. Trump was nominated. Finally, it's also interesting that as Venus right now currently moves toward her conjunction to Pluto and Capricorn on December 11th, that Dole had this aspect natally in his chart, but in Cancer in his 3rd house. And this might have made him sweet-tongued in his ability to talk people into quote-unquote deals that carried mutually beneficial outcomes, particularly in the realm of funding. You know, Pluto represents other people's money, as in money for their campaigns or other pet causes. So together, his Scorpio Moon Jupiter, Cancer Pluto Venus, and Pisces Uranus Hygeia, which is the female goddess asteroid of health and healing, and South Node formed a grand water trine, indicating that he was sensitive, though at times perhaps more to himself than to others. In short, given his history and his longevity, and he died December 5th at the age of 98, this man was a survivor in almost every interpretation of that word. Now, for the rest of us, the December 11th Venus-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn, the first of 3, because Venus stations retrograde at 26 degrees, 29 minutes of Capricorn on December 19th, which also happens to be the same day that wounded healer Chiron stations direct at 8 degrees, 26 minutes of Aries. Venus will remain retrograde until January 29th, during which time it will conjoin with Pluto again on December 24th, and once more on March 3rd, when Venus is once again direct. Now, I'll talk more about the whole Venus cycle next week, but suffice it to say that December 11th will kick off a period of review about our commitments in relationship and whether or not we're getting as much as we give or vice versa. We're looking for balance and harmony, yes, but also trust and commitment now. Venus retrograde is often a period when old lovers show up from the past, so keep an eye out for that. Meanwhile, be on the lookout for intensity in relationships at this first conjunction, and those which may rely on issues around control, jealousy, manipulation, coercion, etc. Venus at its heart is sweet and pliable, Pluto demanding and hard. This combination can be highly manipulative, as I just noted, particularly around issues of sex and money. Now, Mercury in Sagittarius will sextile Jupiter in Aquarius on December 11th too, And this helps us to better understand ourselves and our overall plans right now. So bottom lining for ourselves, what we want out of life now, especially as we enter the Venus retrograde review of relationships, can be particularly helpful as we decide or move forward with our future plans. The Sagittarius Sun follows Mercury with its own square to Neptune December 11th as well, bringing confusion about our own ego identity and making us prone to feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, or simply general fatigue. So it's best to ride this out, not to believe everything your inner voice tells you if it's negative, and to simply express this energy through creative endeavors that will help expel it rather than letting it fester. Plus, it goes without saying, don't buy the Brooklyn Bridge from anyone now. Finally, Mars enters Sagittarius December 13th, which is the same day Mercury enters Capricorn. And that's an interesting combination, as Mars in Sag wants to fly as high as it possibly can, particularly after the adoption of a singular cause, while Mercury wants just the facts, ma'am. And I'll remind you that, you know, Sagittarius is Jupiter ruled. Jupiter is the sign of expansion, but it also has a tendency to relate to things around higher education, around law, and around foreign travel. So issues related to immigration, particularly on the legal scale, issues related to religion, and issues related just to the law in general. I mentioned last week how many, legal cases are in the news these days, especially with the Supreme Court looking at hearing on December 1st, the oral arguments for the Mississippi restrictive abortion law. So right now, if Mercury can ground Mars, it's all good. And I'll note, too, that Donald Trump just got subpoenaed. This was in the news this morning by New York State Attorney General in the case against his company due to their inflation of real estate prices on their tax returns. Now, that should be interesting. But my point is that Mars and Sag can speed up the legal cases, while Mercury and Cap will enforce the rules around them. So keep an eye on that Trump subpoena. All right. So now I'd like to introduce this week's guest. GAYE MACK, professional astrologer and Bach flower remedy expert, is the author of both Igniting Soul Fire, Spiritual Dimensions of the Bach Flower Remedies, and the newly released Edward Bach and Your Evolutionary Purpose. Her interest in the study of astrology spans more than 40 years, and GAYE holds an advanced level certification from Stephen Forrest's Evolutionary Astrology Apprentice Program. In addition, she studied at the London-based Faculty of Astrological Studies, the FAS, among other well-known astrology schools. GAYE's deep interest in esoteric philosophies, cultural and spiritual traditions in medicine, and self-discovery led to her undergraduate studies in psychology and sociology and a Master's of Arts degree in Integrated Professional Studies from DePaul University in Chicago. It was there her work focused on holistic medicine and the application of integrative therapies for eating disorders and other emotional illnesses. While working and teaching in the field of alternative healing therapies, GAYE developed unique experience with flower remedies on both sides of the Atlantic. Her studies with several principal flower remedy practitioners and producers led to her inclusion in the early group of U.S. practitioners listed on the Dr. Edward Bach Foundation's International Register of Practitioners. Based in Barrington, Illinois, GAYE maintains an international practice in evolutionary astrology and is an experienced international traveler, conference speaker, and workshop facilitator. She can be reached through her website at gayemack.com, and that's GAYEMACK.com. And I just want to tell Cameron, my engineer, that there's a lot of noise coming, so I'm not sure if your mic is muted, but I just want to say that. So I hope it's not too disruptive for our listeners. So, hey, GAYE, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. And thank you, Sherry, for having me on. I've been looking forward to this.
Yes, I know, and me too. And hopefully many of our listeners have been looking forward to as well. It's been a while since I've had a guest on the show, and I'm really pleased that it's someone that I know, because Gay and I both attended overlapping sessions when we studied with our mentor Stephen Forrest. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show and to talk about your new book. So I'm wondering if you can first enlighten our listeners a bit about who was Edward Bach, and why was he important enough to write 2 books about?
Well, first of all, Bach only lived to the age of 50. He died in 1936, so he was born in 1886 during Victoria's time. And he was a highly regarded British physician. He was noted for his work, particularly in bacteriology and immunology. He did service during World War I. But the other side of him was that he was extremely spiritual, which I'll be talking about as we go through this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And he got to a point, first I should say that he had a very thriving practice in traditional medicine on Harley Street in London, which is where all the high-priced consultants have their practices even to this day. And he had a research. He had a
Cameron, we can
lab.
hear you, hon. So can you mute your mic? Okay, go ahead,
sing
Gay.
anyways.
Go ahead.
Sing anyways.
Oh boy, we got. let's just go on.
Okay.
Hang on. Let me just clear my. Gosh, singing is harder than I thought.
Hang on, I gotta see if I can.
You can do it. Come on, sing for me.
Hold on.
Okay, if you insist.
Our engineer has not muted his
while away
mic, so let me see if I
conferring
can't
with the
just
consulting with the rain.
and
my head I'd be
hold on.
scratching while my thoughts were busy
Hold on,
hatching.
I'm going to
If I
call him.
only had
So if everybody could just
Wait a
stand by, that would be great. Hold on.
You need to sing, not read.
I'm just calling.
Is there something else I can help with?
Quick. Hold on, everybody. Sorry.
That was funny.
Anyway, go ahead, Gay.
Ready? Okay. All right. So where was I? Anyway, so Dr. Bach, highly regarded, had a practice, traditional practice on Harley Street in London, where, you know, the consultants today still have their high-priced practices. He got to a point towards the end of the 1920s where he was becoming very dissatisfied, knowing, well, obviously I don't know him personally today, but the kind of man he was, I think probably what happened among many things is that he became very disillusioned with the commercial side of medicine, which of course we're seeing a lot of in our own lives now. And this spiritual side of him it couldn't reconcile it. So basically what happened was that he left traditional medicine. He left London in 1928, and he had a unique symbiotic relationship with nature, and he loved being out in nature. This is where he found his peace of mind, so to speak. And he was extremely sensitive, and he discovered through his relationships with nature that certain flowers the vibration of certain flowers had an ability to balance out negative emotional states within us. Now, I should say that he also had a background in homeopathy.
Mm-hmm.
So any of your audience who are familiar with how homeopathy works and the principles behind homeopathy, there is a correlation between that process and how Bach worked and discovered his remedies, and how he expanded his repertoire into what we know today as the 38 Bach flower remedies. Now, he announced in 1935 that his work was finished, and he died in 1936, and he was only 50 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So all of the flower remedy work around the world today is based on Edward Bach's work. And
Mm.
I think, as I say in the book, and I also said it in Igniting Soul Fire, is that he would be astonished to see what has happened to his work, because it started out as a little cottage industry. And when he left London, he had a very lucrative practice, so money wasn't an issue. But when he left London, he refused to charge his patients for his services. And in fact, at the Bach Center today, which is just a tiny cottage where he lived and practiced, it's about 20 minutes south of the city of Oxford. It's near Wallingford, for anybody that's familiar with that area in England. And he made the furniture for his consulting room, and it's just very basic, very basic. And so he went from this sort of what do I want to say, really profitable lifestyle and practice into very simple living, and focused on discovering his remedies. So on the spiritual side of him, and in his writings, he constantly talks about our sole purpose is to connect to our divinity. And he also said that everyone has a job in this lifetime. And of course, the work with his remedies, he said, this is my job. But, you know, discovering that, quote, job, or what Stephen refers to as our cosmic job, this is not always straightforward. And we have a lot of bumps in the road, and it's based in our emotional body as we travel on this journey. So really, very much like evolutionary astrology, which is another tool that helps us understand not only why we are, or not only who we are, but why we are, and how our soul intends us to move along in our evolution in this lifetime. You know, we're talking there, of course, about our emotional body, just as Bach talked about. So really, it's a marriage of two systems, or an integration, I should say, that is really pretty powerful, pretty powerful. Actually, on this, I'd like to, can I just quote Bach on this for you?
Oh, please do. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I have it I used it in the book, and it's not too long, but I think it pretty much telescopes down his philosophy of why we're here and, you know, what the purpose is. So he said, we carry a spark of the divine that within us resides a vital and immortal principle. And the more that spark of divinity shines within us, the more our lives radiate its sympathy, its compassion, and its love, the more we are beloved by our fellow men. From time immemorial, man has looked at the two great sources for healing, to his maker and to the herbs of the field, which his maker has placed for the relief of those who suffer. Yet one truth has mostly been forgotten, that those herbs of the field placed for healing, by comforting, by soothing, by relieving our cares, our anxieties, bring us nearer to the divinity within. And it is that increase of the divinity within us which heals.
Wow, I love that, Gaye. You know, through my studies, I always say to my clients, we all carry within a spark of the divine. And so he just, you know, beautifully echoes that. The only other thing I want to add is, you know, I studied past life regression with Patricia Walsh, who's also an astrologer. And she was a disciple of Dr. Roger, oh God, his name just slipped. Roger Wilger, right. And I love the fact that Bach tied the body, the physical body, to the evolutionary purpose, because, you know, we believe that the soul takes the cellular memory with it when the body expires. And then I've seen time and again proof that that cellular memory gets reincarnated into a new incarnation or physical body. And that's pretty amazing when you think about it. So,
you know, it's interesting you should say that. And I don't want to go down one of those rabbit holes, but that point that you make, when I was in graduate school, my faculty mentor was a doctorate in genetics. We had a very interesting 3 years together, to say the least. And and I kept saying to him, you know, that there was such a thing as cellular memory. And of course, him being, you know, coming from a reductionistic scientific background, kept saying to me, well, how do you know? And I'd say, because I just know. And, you know, so we'd go back and forth about that. But Bach, and interestingly, Bach himself was never in good health, never. In fact, Nora Weeks, who was a radiographer, they call them radiographers over in England, she was in London and knew him through their work. And when he left traditional medicine, she went with him. And of course, there are lots of stories about, you know, unrequited love and all that kind of stuff. And when she was by his side to his death. And then and then she never married. And she carried on his work with a very, very small group of other people that he considered trustworthy in the work with him over the years. And there is a quote in, I'm not sure I used it in my book, but it's in the Bach writings. He asks her, is there ever a time when you are not conscious of your body because, you know, you're not in distress? And she says, oh, yes, lots of times. And he says, I never know that kind of peace.
Oh, wow.
So he, when he was still practicing traditional medicine, he had a stomach hemorrhage, which they did not think he was going to survive. He did survive it. And up until his death, his health was always an issue. He was a workaholic. He was an absolute workaholic. And much of the remedy discovery is that, or came about because he would go into a mood state that was so unbalanced. And then he knew that he had to go out into as he said, the flowers of the field to find the flowers, the vibration of the flowers that would help bring him out of that distressed mood state.
Wow. So he was instinctively drawn to the physical flowers, right?
Oh, yeah, because he, it's said that towards the end, he was so highly sensitive, is that he could take a leaf or a petal from a flower and touch it to his tongue and intuit the healing qualities of that flower.
Wow.
Now, I need to make a distinction here, especially for your audience, because a lot of times these remedies get confused with aromatherapy, and they're very different. Aromatherapy uses the physical pathway of smell. The flower remedies have no molecular structure in them. The way that they're made is that the flowers are infused in spring water. They're placed in the sunlight. Then after a certain period of time, depending on the flowers are removed. And the idea is that the water, to use a homeopathic term, has become potentized. Bach used the word spiritualized. So there's a transfer of the life force from the flower onto the water. And the water, of course, is what the remedies are made out of.
Right. Wow. So interesting. Oh, my God. I want to ask you, because, you know, you and I both know that one of the integral core teachings of evolutionary astrology revolves around the important significance of the north and the south nodes of the moon.
Right.
Because those delineate for our clients and others, you know, the portal through which we entered from past life karma, assuming we believe in reincarnation, and the direction in which our soul is striving to move. Can you briefly outline for our listeners why these points are important in terms of our past life karma, but also how they might help us move towards our highest purpose and destiny in this lifetime? Yeah.
Sure.
And how that corresponds, you know, with Bach, you know?
Right. Well, of course, from an astrological perspective, the south node in our chart represents a piece of unfinished and, you know, to put it in quotes, the word emotional karma that was left hanging because whatever was going on in that particular life left us, I'll just use the word unbalanced, emotionally unbalanced. You know, it could be fear, anger, you know, terror, whatever. And we have brought that with us into this life to heal. We've come along far enough in our evolution that we're strong enough. This is what I say to clients, that you're now strong enough, you've evolved enough that you can now take another look at what this unfinished piece of emotional imbalance is hanging you up. And then, of course, we're going towards the North Node in our chart. Bach used with his remedies two terms he used, and it's very, very similar. It's almost identical, but he was very Victorian in his language, so I'm just going to use his terms. He used the terms hindrances and virtues. And the hindrance was the negative emotional state that you were in, represented by the flower remedy itself. And then, of course, you're using that particular flower remedy to help break that cycle and move you to the high expression of the flower of the remedy's vibration, which would be, we would say, the North Node in your chart. So it's all about mood state. You know, I don't want to get too far off the track here, but he also talked about soul types, which I talk about in the book extensively, that each of us comes into this life with a particular soul type that is married to one of his first 12 remedies, which are known as the 12 healers or the 12 great healers, whatever you're reading.
Right. And no,
go ahead.
No,
so
I was going
to. You first.
No, I was going to say that I see in your book that you correlate the 12 South Node zodiacal signs, because basically you're referencing the flower remedies and the hindrances that can be construed with a particular remedy to move to the virtue, but you correlate it to the zodiacal signs, right? And those zodiacal signs for each of us, because we each have a South Node in our chart, those are the signs that we're talking about, not the sun sign or the moon sign or whatever. And that you correlate these 12 South Node zodiacal signs with some generally suggested Bach flower remedies. So I'm wondering, if you don't mind, if you could give us a brief run through of these. So just a couple of sentences for each South Node sign and what would be a potential remedy. I understand, and I know that you know, the audience should understand that it's not quite as simple as this. However, this is a place of, a takeoff place. We can start there,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, let me just say that the system of the remedies, like our system of astrology that we work with, it's very similar in the fact that there isn't just one meaning to assign a house or a planet's energies. And it's the same with the remedies. So when I go through this, which I made up a little list for you, is that you're going to hear some remedies are used for more than one sign for the South Node. And, you know, there are reasons for that. But I'm just going to run through this very quickly just to give your audience kind of a taste of what is possible. So obviously start with Aries. Let's start with Aries, the South Node. So in that situation, obviously you were probably in circumstances that left you with emotions of rage due to probably conflict. It could have been war. It could have been domestic conflict. This might lead you to gravitate into fear or prone to panic, or there's also, Bach uses the term of smoldering anger, and this would be the kind of anger that is just stuffed. You know, we would say it in today's vernacular as just, you know, stuffing it. And obviously what we're trying to get towards with Aries is, you know, feeling courageous and being able to transform that very negative rage and anger and fear into a different perspective and releasing the victimization stuff. So the remedies that you might want to look at are, I'm going to run through these a little quickly: holly, mimulus, rock rose, and willow. Now, with Taurus, which follows Aries, of course, and we know that with Taurus, the war is over, thank God.
Right. Time to
And we're
rest,
like,
sleep, and have a nice
yeah,
hearty meal.
a nice hearty meal and a bubble bath. Yeah, that would
Right.
be Taurus.
Exactly.
Yeah, so there's a desire here for peace and simplicity, but you know, you and I know that Taurus has a hard time with change, and this can make Taurus lazy, and the resistance to, you know, it's the kind of why fix it if it isn't broken mindset.
And it feels good.
So, and it feels good, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things, especially if the individual is attached, is hanging on to, say, family traditions or perspectives, you know, the ways of doing something that, you know, really has outgrown its usefulness.
Mm-hmm.
I had a grandfather who used to push the car out of the garage to save money by starting it instead of backing it up. I mean, my God,
I knew a guy back in the 80s when I was young who said his father used to turn off the engine at a red light. So same type of thing. I was like, whoa.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Listen,
So
Gaye, I just want to tell you this just to give you a heads up. And, you know, if we don't finish this, I will have you back on. But we have about 10 minutes left. So I just want to give you a heads up so that we can get through all the signs.
Moving
hopefully.
along. Okay.
Yeah.
So the high expression with Taurus, of course, is we're looking towards a willingness to change and to move forward and to, you know, back off from that narrow perspective. So you're looking at rock water, vine, and walnut. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, the messenger of the gods, you know, quick thinking, regarded for intellect. But in the past, we might have gotten this wrong. And in the book, I use the example of the captain of the Titanic, who was repeatedly warned and knew better. And of course, you know, 1,200 lives were lost. So it's something like this that we might bring into this lifetime that has weakened. I mean, you know, if you were responsible for losing 1,200 people, you know, your ability to trust, your mental acuity might be a little warped. Or your self-confidence.
Right.
So you're looking at Serato and Larch. And the Serato certainly helps us to trust our intuition and our wisdom. And the Larch is about bolstering our self-confidence, okay? So Cancer, you know, Cancer, too much caring. Let me do this for you.
Right.
Can spiral, of course, into a neediness because it believes it's, you know, nobody's listening to it, its needs aren't being met, and, you know, maybe nobody was listening to us.
Right.
And what can happen is that it reverts into a need to control in relationships, believing that if they control everything, they're going to get love, and that definitely would be chicory, okay? Or the Smouldering Anger because we weren't heard. Well, there's your Willow again. And the neediness, to back off from the neediness, that would be Heather, okay? Into Leo. So maybe in the past we were placed in a situation that required a lot of exposure and with role expectations, and we weren't ready or trained for this. And so we didn't do a very good job. And so when we come into this life, you know, we're kind of reluctant to shine. You know, we don't want to take any kind of risk. And, you know, we're afraid of making a mistake, and we get easily discouraged, and we want to throw in the towel. And yet, you know, we're not supposed to throw in the towel. So Larch again for self-confidence, and Gentian, which is a wonderful remedy for moving past, shall we say, setbacks and not getting mired into disappointments, that kind of thing, okay?
Right. Reminds me of hiding your light under a bushel. So a way to be able to express yourself without fear, of failure. Yep.
So here comes your favorite, Virgo.
That's my rising sign.
Yeah, never satisfied. Never satisfied. Which is, of course, a harsh contrast to the evolutionary intent to grow. And so in the past, there's been a misstep either, as a perpetrator or a victim. And this one is really important because Virgo comes in with the dynamic of evolutionary dynamic of needing to grow. And it can, if there have been missteps in the past, it brings in shame-based guilt with it.
Mm-hmm.
And those two remedies are crabapple and pine. And that dynamic gets set up very young within us for, I could write a whole book just on crab and pine.
Mm-hmm.
But these two help to address that deep-rooted feeling of not being enough. Okay?
Right. Gotcha.
All right, Libra. Keeping everyone happy in the rowboat and possibly our head, trying to
Right. Harmony,
with
balance. Yeah.
Yep. Relationships. So has an inability to set boundaries and the inability to break that pattern from the past. And yet in the North, we need to learn to say yes to no. Okay. And to stop.
I love that.
Stop.
Mm-hmm.
Say yes to no and stop repeating the pattern and the victimization stuff. So there, we're looking at Centauri, Chestnut Bud, and of course our friend Willow again. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How are we doing for time? Okay, I've got like what?
We got about about. Well, you know what? Do you want to come back again and do the rest of them?
Well, we just got what? We've got we're about halfway through, right?
Yeah, we're halfway through. So we have until the show goes off about 6 minutes from now. So,
you
but
know
I
what?
just need, yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind coming back to just this piece of it to finish.
You know what? We could actually also, let's do that. Let's
Okay.
not rush through it because it's important. It's part of your life work, and I think it's really important. So let's skip now because you've done half the zodiac. So either
Right.
we'll pre-record at a mutually convenient time. The holidays are coming, and
Okay.
I think Gay and I had correspondence, and I said that I was born and raised into a Jewish family, and that I watch from afar the stress that my friends who celebrate Christmas go through because it's such a stressful time. I mean, all the shrinks write about it, the coaches write about it, right? I mean, social workers write about it. And I said, if I'm lucky enough to get invited to someone's house for the Christmas holidays, I bring my gift, I put it under the tree or on the table. Hopefully it's a dessert. I partake, I laugh, I have fun, we all sing, and then I go home.
And then you get to go home.
And then everybody else has Christmas night or morning or whatever, where they're, where all the real fun starts. It's a little bit like Thanksgiving, I think,
Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to come back, finish the remedies, and just to say, if people are interested in a reading with me, they can go to my website. It's, as you said in the beginning, GAYEMACK.com. It's a secure website. There is a contact form on it. I would like to leave your audience with two websites that can give them more information about the remedies and Bach himself. One is Bach Center, and it's the British spelling of center. It's Bach, B-A-C-H, Center, CENTRE.com. And the other one is Healing Herbs, healing like herbs, HERBS.co.uk. Very simple websites. There's a lot of info on them.
Okay. And we have a few minutes left. I just didn't want you to rush through all the signs and feel stressed and all that stuff.
Oh, okay.
As again, you celebrate Christmas. You're already stressed. So
yeah, I am. I'm drinking Rescue Remedy.
yeah, exactly. But I'm wondering if you could share Edward Bach's chart data with everyone. So anyone who's interested might be able to just cast the chart themselves and see,
Sure.
Do a little deeper dive if they're
yeah, sure. There are several ways to do this, as you and I have discussed privately. The chart that I used in the book, which I'm very fond of this particular chart, but his birth date was September 24th, 1886. The time I have is 5:20 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. He was born just outside of Birmingham, England, and that's Birmingham, UK.
Okay, and that time is a rectified time, you said, right?
That's rectified, yeah.
Right. So we don't have a known birth time for him.
We do not. No, we do not. Right. And I don't know. This chart was given to me almost a year ago when I started working on the book. Mm-hmm. And I honestly can't remember, who gave it to me. I mean, it wasn't just somebody off the street.
No, clearly. Yeah. We trust you more than that, Gay. He said, well, but those people, strange things happen. It's like you could be on the subway and someone will just shout out, Edward Bach, 2:22 p.m. And it's your energy that drew them to you. And when you look at the chart, you go, holy, you know what? Oh, my God. Good goddamn. This actually works.
Yeah, so for those in your audience who cast that, it's pretty telling, in my opinion, humble opinion. I find it, very fascinating. When I wrote Igniting Soul Fire, I was given a different chart, and actually I was thinking about it this morning, and I haven't gone back and looked, but I think, Sherry, it was the chart that you cast the other day using the noon time. I haven't gone back and looked, but could be.
Right. I think I'm going to do a lecture on that, how to cast a noon chart and then how to interpret the aspects, But the other thing, and I just, thanks. But one of the other things I just want to say is I noticed that he had a Pisces South Node. And because you and I are both evolutionary astrologers, the other webinar I want to do is on how to identify psychic capability in the chart. Identify what it actually is, or define what that actually is, because people get confused between intuition and psychic capability, and we know there's many different kinds. But a Pisces South Node to me is always someone who comes in connected to the collective. And therefore, because of the lack of boundaries between the energy of the person themselves and the collective, which is also inclusive of the divine realm, to me, that's where we all contain a spark of the divine comes from in Bach's, writings or whatever.
Yeah. So, and he uses that word, the divine, he uses it constantly. And, with the chart that I used, you will see that South Node in Pisces is sitting right on the ascendant. And his chart is absolutely full of psychic and intuitive gifts. And just one thing I wanted to say when you were talking about that, Donna Cunningham, which I have the full article on it, did a huge article at some point, and I copied it, on how, what you're looking at to identify the psychic characteristics in a chart. It's pretty fascinating.
Oh,
and
cool. I have to look it up. Yeah, I'll have to.
I use it all the time with.
Oh, that's great. So I'll get that info from you, and I'll share that with people next week. But we have 2 minutes left, or 1 minute left. So I want you to tell people now, before I wrap up, is where they can buy your book.
They can. It's on Amazon. Actually, the U.S. Release is tomorrow, the 10th.
Oh, excellent.
The U.K. release was in September, and then it got backed up here because of the log jam at the ports, because the book is published in the U.K. Anyway, on Amazon, and I'm told by the U.S. distributor that it can be. There are stores who will order it if they don't have it on the shelf. Who their clients are. I know Ingram, which is a big wholesaler for places like Barnes and Noble, have ordered the book from the U.S. distributors. So probably Amazon is the easiest for people.
Okay.
Also, the remedies themselves, almost every Whole Foods in the country carries the full repertoire. And then, of course, you've got independent health food stores that carry them.
Right. And I don't know how extensive the chain Wegmans is, but we have it here in Jersey, and they carry them as well. But
Yeah,
I'm going to have to wrap up. So when
Okay.
we get off, we can talk privately, and we'll figure out when we'll get you back, just to do the remaining, not just, but to hear more pearls of wisdom about both the remedies for the final 6 signs of the zodiac, and also to chit chat more. So I want to thank you, Gaye, very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone else for joining us today. I hope you found the information presented here helpful as you continue your karmic evolution in this lifetime. Please be sure to join me next week, December 16th, for another episode of Karmic Evolutions, Astrologically Speaking. Until then, may your journey be filled with karmic healing and the joy of greater consciousness. Namaste.